the Instructor podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
So welcome to the Instructor podcast, Green Room edition. This is a show where we bring you all the latest news and specific topics as they relate to the driving instructor industry. As always, I am your splendid host, Terry Cook, and I'm delighted to be here. And even more delighted that you have chosen to listen, but you'll be glad to know it's not just me. I am joined by the ever-delightful Chris Bensted. How are we doing, Chris?
Hello, I'm doing really well. I'm having a great week.
Excellent. I never know how to introduce you. Is it Chris Bensted of the DITC, Chris Bensted of the Theory Test Explain, Chris Bensted of Motormouth? What do we label you as?
I got told the other day, Chris Bensted, who turns up to the opening of a paper bag. So, I like being involved in stuff in the industry. So, industry mouthpiece. How's about that?
Well, I'm going to give you a public challenge now, because this episode will be going out on the 28th of February, which will also be the time the webinar from the DIA for the Motormouth will be going out that evening. So make sure you go and tune into that and watch that. I want you to get Carly to introduce you as Chris Bensted from the Green Room. That's the challenge.
Okay. I'll give it a go.
That will be, I will retire if you get that done.
I'll definitely give it a go.
Yeah. But yeah, you are listening to The Green Room. This is episode 26. And someone actually asked me recently, they couldn't quite get their head around what The Green Room is. Now, I thought I did quite a good way of simplifying that at the beginning. But for anyone that isn't sure, The Green Room is simply where we look at the instructor profession as a whole, the ADI, PDI profession as a whole, and we dig deep into a topic and the latest news. So whereas on the Instructor podcast, I will get different guests in to speak about a topic that may relate. This is very, very specific, and we have got some very, very specific news this week all around the DVSA. Now, before we dive into this, some of you may have seen a Facebook post I put up a little while ago talking about how I try not to get ranty on the podcast, and I try to be positive and constructive and trying to give you something to take away each time. Apologies in advance for going back on that on today's episode. But lots of news around DVSA, and I'm going to start off with the positives actually, because they did recently update their theory test app, so the official DVSA one. And I spotted this before they sent the email out, but it looks a hell of a lot better. It felt quite dated compared to some of the others. So I'm pleased they've updated it. Again, nothing monumental, but it's about time. Anything you want to add to that, Chris? Have you had a chance to play on it at all yet? Or
I just need to know a bit more as to whether there is AI of some kind that helps you identify what you're getting wrong and what you don't know. Because that's the big divider on apps, on theory apps, is does it randomly ask you questions so you don't know if you've been asked everything, or you don't get asked what you need to know, or is there some kind of logic to it? So I'm keen to find out. But visually, I thought it looked great. So hopefully it's not style over substance.
Yeah. I like the aesthetics of it, and part of that might just be because of the blue, which always reminds me of the Instructor podcast. But I mean, if we're being completely honest, the apps are all, and I don't mean to be dismissive, but they're very similar. They do a very similar thing. Some are marketed better than others, but I think a lot of it comes down just to personal preference of what you prefer. But I think that it's good that they've updated it. It looks a hell of a lot better, which hopefully will actually encourage more people to maybe learn the theory a little bit as well.
Yeah, what I would like to see is the ability for instructors to engage with it and their pupils, so we can see what our pupils are doing. But I know that they are looking at that on other platforms. So that's always a benefit as an instructor. But as an app, it looks really nice. I just wanted to make sure it's doing the right job.
Yep. The other bit of news now, I consider this a positive. I think you'll consider it a positive, but I'm confident there are some people listening that won't. The Are You Ready Are You Ready website by the DVSA has been updated, expanded. It's got more information on there. There's more things for people to look at. Yeah, give us your thoughts on that, Chris.
Yeah, I like it. I think there's some really good content. There's a few bits of potential contention as to whether that you want that information out there or whether you agree with it. I think more and more instructors are using it as a way to kind of show pupils, look, this is what the DVSA are saying, and you're not there. So I think they've done a great job. It is the best project that I've seen from the DVSA in the time that I've been doing the job. So I think they've done it really well. And having had the pleasure of speaking to them, as I know you have as well, I know it's going to grow and become something even bigger and more beneficial. So I haven't really got any negatives about it. I think it's a great resource for us.
There was some of the wording that I wasn't keen on, and I know that I put my feedback across on that. And I think that there's still an element at times of it being a bit too test focused. And I think that, I've said this before, that I'm always reluctant to, it sometimes feels a bit like we're saying, if you don't do this private practice, you're not going to pass. And it feels a little bit like that. And I think I'd rather the focus sometimes was just on the practice overall. But I do really, really like it. I agree with you. It's the best project they've done maybe since I've been an instructor, which isn't as long as you. I think 7 years now. I do like it. There's a scaling system which they brought up, which I really liked. It was like they graded 1 to 5, and 5 being reflecting upon it. And I've actually brought that into my lessons a little bit now. So, can you do it? But then can you do it and reflect upon it? I find that quite an interesting take.
Yeah, and I think that was something that I spoke to them about, that took me back to when it was the DVSA system of sort of 5 stars of have you introduced it, or the level at which the pupil is working at, whereas this is actually the level at which they're driving at. So it's not about the instructional approach. Are we prompting them? It's do they need prompting? So I think that addition of reflection is I think that's really nice. And the syllabus, for want of a better phrase, the was it 27 skills that are on there? I thought that breakdown was interesting. There's some I would have added or changed or everything else, but actually, as DVSA go, I felt it was a nice breakdown. It's not the everything that we try to look at, and I agree, it makes it a bit test focused, but I think everything was there to some extent.
And just as a couple of side notes, if anyone hears any banging in the background, the lady who lives above me just started on a running machine, so that's what that is. But also, it did amuse me because I spoke to them about this after you, and this was one of the points. And I said it a few times. Was Chris had comments about this bit? It was quite amusing. But yeah, I think the thing I would recommend to any instructor listening is to go and look at it and take what's right for you. You're not going to look at that, probably think, 100% of this I'm going to use, but there will be bits of it that you can use. And I've said for a while that it feels like they're backing us up a little bit here, and there's, things on there about a number of hours and stuff like that. So if you've got a student that, hopefully we don't let it get this far, you've got a student that's arguing about being ready for a test or something, you've got the DVSA backing you up potentially. You can show the information on there. Now, ideally, you don't wait until that point. Ideally, you're talking about stuff like that from day one to a degree. You don't let it get to where it's an actual problem, but it's good there. The other thing I will mention, we will get more into this on an episode further down the line. The DVSA are coming on now. I forget the chap's name, but it's someone from the Driver Services Recovery, because we're also going to be talking about driving test waiting times. And is in charge of Driver Services Recovery. So that could be an interesting conversation. I'm saying that we've not recorded yet. It could still fall through. But we're going to be covering more about the Are You Ready campaign there. So anything else to add onto that, Chris?
No, that sounds really good. I look forward to listening to that.
Cool. Then there was the other information from the DVSA, which is they are trying to prevent driving test fraud. So let's get this right. They are getting an image of the candidates on their iPad to then compare that rather than looking at the what do you call it? The license. They're getting that to make sure it is who it says on the tin, essentially, which I think is a good thing. Worth mentioning. Anything to add or?
I have the pleasure of one of our local guys, who being one of the fraud and integrity people from DVSA, who comes and does a bit of the overtime testing to try and reduce the waiting list. And we were chatting about this, and apparently it's a massive problem with, they think it's organised crime, putting a film with a photo over the photo that's on the license. So this is where it's coming from, is really to identify that, the document, the license hasn't been doctored. So, if it's preventing against that, I don't understand why anyone would have an issue with it. However, my only concern is if you've got one of those licenses with a picture that's come off of their passport where they look 12 because they are, might be worth making sure that when your pupils first start, they get that photo updated so that it looks like them. Because if they're now working off of something that's actually a decent quality and everything else, you don't want to be refused because your pupil looks like a child on their photo.
Cool. All right, so in a minute we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the changes to audit, the massive revolutionary changes to audit. We're going to be talking about Loveday's email about the achievements from 2022, what's coming up in 2023, and we're going to be talking about grades as well, A and B, and how Chris recently provoked a bit of a stir around grades. And we're going to tell you as well a little bit about a new event that's coming up that Chris has made me aware of, that if you've got a spare couple of pounds, you could attend. But before we do that, let's take a minute to set the table. So Chris, do you want to just tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about what you do and where people can indeed find you?
I'm Chris Bensted. I am from the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective, the DITC, which you can find at theditc.co.uk. And we are the signposting platform for the driving instructor industry. The biggest conversation I have with instructors is that when they first approached the industry, what we call pre-PDIs, that they couldn't find anything that wasn't either gov.uk minimum standards of this, these are the steps you've got to take, or possibly overstated sales pitches from very big companies looking to sell them a product. And they're looking for that important information in between. And that's what we try to provide and try to offer support for. And then for once people are qualifying and have qualified, that they can then come along and get benefits and support and the right information. And that's what we do. So come along and have a look, check it out and see whether you want to join us to make the world a better place.
It's a good investment, I would say that. And you are listening to the Green Room of the Instructor Podcast. And as always, I am your splendid host, Terry Cook. Now, the Instructor Podcast has been going for since early 2021, so over 2 years, almost 2 years. I think it was April 2021 it kicked off, so almost 2 years. And we speak to leaders, experts, innovators, and game changers. Look at ways that we can help you improve your driving school and potentially become an even more awesome driving instructor. So the best place for you to find out more is to go to www.theinstructorpodcast.com. And over there, you can find past episodes. You can find out more about the show. You can find out links to other podcasts. So if we're on a bit of a sabbatical as we are between seasons now, you can go and check out all the awesome stuff over there, including Voices from the Road, a cracking little podcast by James Luckhurst. So I'll definitely recommend you go and check that out. But also, you can check out the premium content over on the website as well. We've got a whole host of shows. I think there's like 86 exclusive shows over there at the minute, stuff around the standards check, as well as with people like Bob Morton, Robin Bates, Nick Oak, Sam Harper, and we've got another 2 shows coming up soon as well. Over the next few months, they'll be starting up, and in March, on the 19th, the Instructor Podcast returns for season 5. And also in March, we have something very special launching, an Instructor Podcast Premium. So make sure you hang about for that. And also, this is the last podcast before we get to it, so I'm going to mention it now. The 16th of March is Driving Instructor Day. So make sure you, exactly, we'll give it a big cheer. So make sure you are looking out for the posts on the Facebook. The wonderful Stefan going to try and pronounce his surname correctly, Stefan Plus, I think it's pronounced as, has made this international. He's from Switzerland, and he's got a lot of Swiss driving instructors taking part as well. So it's now International Driving Instructor Day. Any post you make online, use the hashtag Driving Instructor Day, and I will try my best to share them. You can find out more at www.drivinginstructorday.com, or if in Switzerland, you can find the Swish version of the site over there as well. But I would love it if you could do something special on ADI Day. So whether that's taking the day off, whether it's doing a raffle for your students that day to see if someone can win a free lesson, whether it's beeping as you go past a test centre, or that might even be the day the examiners are striking. So, that could be fun for Driving Instructor Day. But yeah, it would be great if you could celebrate that and give that a little cheer. Any thoughts on Driving Instructor Day, Chris?
I thought it was the day that we all go on strike, because I keep seeing in the news that instructors are striking. But yes, no, I'm looking forward to what I'm going to do, because I don't know what it is yet, and I'm having a think about that one. But it's awesome that we have a day where we can all recognise ourselves, so we can make that effort to do so.
Well, I'm going to give a little shout out to. I can always get his surname wrong. Can't remember if it's Andy Sink or Andy Sinker. Either way, ADI lives near me. We're meeting up this year. We're going to have a little coffee or something like that, a little get together. He's one of my premium members. We do talk a bit, but we've never actually met in person. So I'm actually making physical effort this year. And I will be posting some sort of a picture online with the hashtag Driving Instructor Day. And I still need to update the website with the pictures from last year, so that could be done on my week off, which was the last week. So there you go. Wasn't done, I should say, not could be. Either way, let's move on to the rest of the news. And this is where it gets interesting, because audit, Chris, there were some revolutionary sweeping changes to audit that have been being cried out for years. Do you want to tell us what they were?
I made a big mistake of getting excited about the fact that they were revisiting audit and they were going to look at making it better. And as far as I can tell, the only change of any kind of substance is that it's got to include role play. So you can't be training from the back seat or anything like that. That it's a PDI, because obviously, just to clarify, audit being instructor training, it's a voluntary system. So, there isn't, anyone can train a driving instructor. You don't even have to be a driving instructor to train a driving instructor, but you can voluntarily join audit and pay the DVSA money for the privilege, which would be brilliant if it was a good structured training scheme and if it enforced some form of quality. But unfortunately, no, they've just made sure it's role play. I'm immensely disappointed. I appreciate it's probably hugely political and all of that, but I'm still disappointed. But, and I know we're going to come to this, Loveday has hinted that there are still going to be some changes upcoming with audit. So maybe, they might change one of the letters or something. But I've given up being hopeful. I was really looking forward to something substantial, and we've missed it.
Never give up being hopeful. Never give up being hopeful. I have been a bit disillusioned with some stuff recently, but I have never given up hope. There is always hope, Chris. We've never actually spoke about audit properly on this show as like the topic part. So I was thinking perhaps when we, because we haven't announced it yet, so we may as well do it now. The Instructor podcast is going to be back at the Intelligent Instructor recording live. We're going to about the conference in Kempton, which is the 20-something of April. I think it's the 3rd or 26th. I can't remember which, but it's a Sunday. We're going to be recording live. That I was asked back because I did that much of an awesome job last year. However, I made a request this year that we do something slightly different. And we are recording the Green Room live at Kempton this year. So, Chris, you are going to be joining me at Kempton. So perhaps that could be the audit episode. That could be interesting.
Yes, that'd be really good. Looking forward to that on the 23rd of April.
23rd of April, just exactly as I said. Yeah, that could be interesting. Now, we don't know how long we've got yet. I have requested that we get an hour so we can do a full-length green room, but we may be restricted to 30 minutes. We'll see. We'll let you know as and when. But if you are considering going down, you can come and watch the green room being recorded live. Possibly even a green room extra afterwards being recorded live. And yeah, if you're not considering going down, we'll reconsider because I'm going to be there, and that's always awesome. But yeah, I think we should definitely include that as a topic at some point going forward. But yeah, it's disappointing that more changes weren't made. But as you said, I do think sometimes maybe hands are tied that we can't see are tied.
Yes, I get that, but that doesn't stop us being disappointed.
No, definitely not. Speaking of disappointment, let's move on to the email that Loveday Ryder sent out. And I fully appreciate that this podcast is going out before I've actually got the DVSA on. So I'll try and temper what I say slightly here in case that gets cancelled. So the DVSA's achievements in 2022. I'm going to start this off with an example of my own. And I hope this comes out the way I intend it. So please pull me up if it doesn't, Chris. But I was nominated and voted for in the Intelligent Instructor Awards for ADI of the Year. I finished 12th overall and second in the Yorkshire and Humber region. So I think technically you could class me as the best male instructor in Yorkshire, you could say. But either way, yeah, so I finished second and 12th. Now, I've not promoted that anywhere. I don't think I've even mentioned it publicly. I know a couple of other people have. My mum blathered it all over Facebook, bless her. But yeah, but the reason I haven't mentioned it is because I genuinely felt like I let a lot of my students down last year. Now, I've spoken a little bit about this on the show before in the issues I had personally last year, and how a lot of my students I would have completely understood if they'd ditched me because there was that many cancellations going on. Now, not necessarily can't make it this morning sort of cancellations, but cancellations I need the week off because I can't stand up or sit down sort of cancellations. And so I felt like I let too many people down last year. So even though I was really touched that many people voted for me, and some of my students copied me in on some of the stuff they'd said, that they sent me a copy of the comments I put, and I was really heartwarmed. And I think some of them even used that as like the reference. Even though Terry was struggling with this, he still did this. I didn't feel right to celebrate that because of everything else. Did I celebrate it personally? Do I take a look back up on 2022 and look at some of the stuff I achieved? Yes. Do I publicly shout about that? No, because I don't think it's right. And I think that's my issue with this, in that I do think there was a lot of issues in 2022 that maybe not necessarily stemmed because of the DVSA, but could have been done differently or improved upon because of the DVSA. And I think to then blase around those, not mention those, sweep those under the carpet and everything's rosy, look at all this amazing stuff, is a little bit disingenuous. And I think that's my stance. Where would you go on to that?
I think you've put that very well. So yeah, I don't know. Read the room, please. Loveday. I get it. We've all got to do the PR pitch sometimes, and we've all got to, to kind of make sure that the work we are doing. Because if you're in a big hole and you are working on trying to get yourself out of that big hole, yes, you've also got to motivate your staff. What we can't afford as instructors, we can't afford examiners to go, right, I'm not doing the overtime, because it's a choice. They don't have to do it. We can't afford for those for that negativity to be there. And if you are an examiner who's doing as much overtime as they can physically manage to do and everything else, you want to be appreciated for that. So, all right, yes, I get that. I just think starting with a headline of reflecting on DVSA successes, considering that, I thought it was a very long blog article. But then to finish with helping communicate the changes of the highway code. I still haven't met anyone who really knows that there's been much of a change outside of people in the industry. I keep having this conversation with people. And I go, really? When did that happen? A year ago? Over a year ago? So, I feel possibly, while I don't particularly disagree with the evidence that's in there, I'm sure those statistics did say, or were made to say, what they've said. I think the flavour or the temperature of what was put out there was possibly ill-conceived. Even if you just change the headline to "We're not quite as bad as you think we are."
2022 reviewed. I think it's that celebrating the successes. You know me, you know that I'm one for celebrating successes. If you look at my Facebook group for the Instructor podcast, which admittedly I haven't been on much recently, another story, another day, but the one consistent thing over there of the years has been on the Saturday, tell me your wins, what have you achieved? I'm all for celebrating successes, but it's as I said at the start, there's a time and a place. And I think if you do a 2022 year review and you look at some of the stuff that's done well and some of the stuff that's not done so well, people can buy that. And I appreciate it's just a title, but you said it quite succinctly and read the room. There's a lot of negativity towards DVSA. Now, me and you probably not necessarily fall into that bracket. You know, we did spend the first bit of this conversation talking about the positives there. And I do think there are positives there. And there are positives within what they've set out. You know, put the statistics aside because what is it they say? Statistics, and damn lies. We can interpret anything into whatever we want. And that's not saying they have, you know, it's saying that anyone can. But I just think, you know, there was a section in there about managing the weather. And I'm like, we know it's going to snow. We can take a really good guess at snow. You should factor that in. When you might not be able to change anything, but you should factor in that you're not going to do so many tests a year because of this. That should be in your schedule. That's not something you then boast about. We managed the weather really well. Did you? Because I'm pretty confident there were 2 tests of mine that got turned away that could have gone out. I'm fairly confident about that. I mean, again, on the plus side, I don't think I'm misremembering this, but on the plus side, they're now changing it so that the eyesight check is different or going to be different so that, you know, it's less of that, can you see in bad visibility, you know, so there is positives there, but I think don't scrape the barrel looking for positives. Find the things that are positive. Really celebrate the Are You Ready campaign. Really celebrate that. Put more emphasis into making that the positive. Yes, by all means, mention the strikes, mention that because that is something you maybe couldn't plan for, something you couldn't accommodate, and something that, you know, nothing to do with you in a sense in that way. But I just, there's a time and a place, and morale is low among some examiners and among some instructors. And I think that celebrating what you've done isn't necessarily the ideal way to raise morale at the minute. Maybe celebrate the people, I don't know, doing this in inverted commas on an audio podcast, but the people below you, the people beneath you, you know, support those below, praise those below, praise the examiners that are doing a damn good job. You know, praise those ones, praise the instructors that are continuing to work hard, not look what we've done. I'm going to stop there. We'll
There's also a Welsh version of the Highway Code out now, so, you know.
That is genuinely a good thing.
Yeah.
Again, there are things that we've spoke about that should have been done before. That there should have been a Welsh Highway Code earlier. There should have been an improved theory test app earlier. Graham O'Brien said it last year when he said about the text messaging service reminders. That should have been done earlier. Do you know what? Yes, they're late with that, but they are doing it, and they deserve praise for that. And that's the sort of stuff that you can praise yourself on. I just find it frustrating that in this time where people are from the almost like the outside looking in, they can't see those positives. So, you know, let's highlight the ones that actually are a positive. Is there anything that you think anything else you think the DVSA should be celebrating, Chris?
No, there's too much work. No, there's too much work left to do. I think there's a time for celebrating. And I appreciate that New Year is a good time to reflect back. And we said and you said specifically about on Ready to Pass about that level of reflection, but that comes at the end when they're ready to be successful. We're not there. That we're at level 2 or 3. I hope. I just no. Carry on.
No, I think that's the sort of thing you would celebrate internally.
Yes.
No, you can. There is stuff that I see in this podcast I wouldn't brag about publicly. I'm honest with my stats sometimes. I put a post up recently showing how January from last year compared to this year's was double. I will share those stats sometimes, and I will share the negative stuff as well. But there is some stuff that I see that I'm like, this is a private celebration. People don't need to know this. This is one where I can sit back and go, I've done well there, but I'm not going to put that out to the public. And I think that was incredibly, incredibly misjudged. And I fully appreciate this is really going to reduce my chances of getting her on. But that's not what you want from the head of the table. The head of the table needs to be able to make those judgments better on like you said, reading the room and what to do publicly and when. And like I say, Loveday's Ryder-Ian's heading the table. She's the focal point, and she should take credit for the stuff that goes well, and she should take the criticism for the stuff that doesn't go so well. I find it slightly concerning that that email has come from that person at that position. And yeah, I'm going to leave that there because I do stand by this. There was the post I put out on Facebook in that I'm not going to come out and just be critical for critical's sake and just, I don't mind having the odd rant. I think it's good. I think it's amusing, but this podcast has never been about just bullets in the DVSA. It's been about raising the news, offering an opinion, and then a discussion, and that's it. And I appreciate that I've probably reduce my chance of getting Loveday on this. But Loveday, if you are listening, please get in touch. I would love to have you on the show. I particularly want to find out about your background and how you've brought that into this industry and what you're using from that. Because I still use stuff from my McDonald's days in delivering driving lessons. So anything else you want to touch on around the success of 2022, Chris?
No, because I want to look forward into 2023. And I think that's where it's fine. She's issued a blog. We've all read the blog. We've established how we feel about it. I think where we stand united is we want to find successful ways to move forwards. So, okay, brilliant. We are where we are. What's next? And that's the bit that I look forward to. Seeing what's going to come through. Actually getting some changes from audit, seeing the waiting times change. And whatever's next from Ready to Pass. It was notable that what was the title? The DVSA plans for 2023 was a lot shorter blog article than the celebrations from 2022.
Where would you like to see their priority focus for 2023? What's the most important thing?
I think we can't afford to be wasting tests. So anything that we can do to avoid wastage has got to be a priority, but that's not pretty or headline. And we probably won't even notice it because it'll be individual tests. I think it's some real back-breaking work that we're not going to notice the benefits on an individual basis, but we'll hopefully chisel away at things. It'll prevent problems. And it's all great. The engagement calls, that there wasn't a figure that said how many people didn't take up the engagement call, but they said that they're up to, I think it was 3,500 engagement calls. I've had some really positive feedback about those, and that's great. It's instructors that are in a better position now, and I think those positive focuses and growth. That's all. I'm not expecting, big growth. I think treading water at the moment is probably good ground if we're working hard during that. And we've all had those periods of time, especially in business, where it is just a case of going, do you know what? We're going to work hard. That's what we're going to do. And I get the politics. That's why I'm not involved with the politics, because it annoys me. I just think, let's just plod on. Let's keep going and let's try and get it right. And let's, have ways that we can communicate when they get it wrong so that they listen.
I would be less inclined to prioritize the driving test waiting list. I would be more inclined to prioritize driving instructors. And whether that's stepping up standards checks, whether that's stepping up engagement calls without standard checks, whether that's completely revitalizing audit and putting some actual structure in place that's mandatory for anyone training instructors, whether it's completely revamping the way people come into the industry and the criteria around coming into the industry. I think that at the minute by focusing on tests, and again, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, I'm talking priorities, potentially focus on the bottom up rather than at the top down, or whichever way around it is. I think that, I've been quite honest before that my standards have slipped slightly in the past, and I then took action to improve them. But part of the reason I took action to improve them is because I saw that my standards were slipping. And part of the reason I saw my standards were slipping was because I host this podcast and I speak to some awesome, truly amazing driving instructors. And I'm like, I used to be like that. Why are I that committed? And why are I doing this? And if I wasn't in that privileged position, would I? It's like the driver that drives for 10 years doesn't notice the faults because you've never do any further training. The driving instructor that just goes for 10 years with no further training, that doesn't, see that, doesn't notice the faults developing. And whether it's by hosting a podcast or listening to a podcast or going on courses, hopefully you can catch those faults. And then you're putting out a better product as well, because since I've now upped my game again, I'm delivering better lessons and delivering better students, and not just to increase the test score, but for afterwards as well. And I think that would be the area I would prioritize.
I think, because I agree, absolutely. I think the difference is that my loss of hope has left me being realistic in what I think they can actually do or would achieve, what they would take on, because I feel that they've already announced that they're not able to make those changes, which would be to audit and to the training process and such. So I think that's the difference. If what you've just said is achievable, 100%, that's top of my list. But I'm having one of those moments that the DVSA bestow upon me at least once a quarter, which is where I kind of go, do you know what? I'm naive to feel hopeful that there's going to be change, and I don't say that in necessarily a negative way. It reminds me, so I'm grateful to them. We are the people that can make those changes, and we are the people that can, as you said, go and do CPD, and it doesn't have to cost anything. There's however many hours of podcast that they can go and digest between lessons and everything else, which is potentially free. And if you enjoy that so much, go and pay for the premium. So saves you saying it. So but it is. I genuinely think that you are the best source of CPD in the industry at this moment in time for breadth and engagement and everything else. It's great. It's why I turn up. I think for me, what do I want the DVSA to do? Just let them do their job, and we can focus on being awesome on our own. Thank you very much.
I didn't quite catch that. Who did he say was the best source of CPD? No.
No, genuinely, I say it regularly. So no, absolutely. There's plenty of other people out there that have got awesome courses and everything else. If you want depth of product and a breadth of topics, and you want it in a format which you can listen to between lessons because you're driving a car, I don't know where else I would go.
I appreciate that comment, and I'm not big on I'd celebrate success. We are, and the phrase I use is that it's the best value CPD out there, clearly, because this is free. so you can't get better value than free. But in my opinion, and it is my humble opinion, and on the initial call link I set up for Chris today, I put my name as Terry Cook, award winner for not winning any awards. So there is that caveat, but I class this as the best quality, quantity, and variety of CPD available. And the premium content is the best value out there. And that's not just me that says it, that's maybe not everyone, pretty much everyone that signs up. But yes, I've made a note to clip that audio clip at 46 minutes. I said I wasn't using the video, but I may well now. Yeah, I do appreciate that. But I've lost track now. I've gone all shy and whatnot. In fact, I was going to mention that one of the things that someone says to me recently on a call, and they will remain nameless, and it wasn't said in any kind of malicious context. It's all right for you. It's all right for you, and it's all right for you because you host that podcast, and where I speak to all these people, and well, my A, listen to it. You get the same I do, and B, well, go and host a podcast then. Yeah. It's all right for you. I hate that phrase. Anyway,
I had a really interesting conversation today with an ADI who wanted some support and wanted to grow. Brilliant. And it was, I look at other instructors and I don't feel as good as they are. But they're not the one that's come and sat in a car to actually take some action. So it depends on what you're measuring it on. But then she sort of, I suppose in an ADI sense, suggested that I'd had a silver spoon of some kind. In that, well, clearly you've had a different journey to me, and it's the only thing that I've been lucky in places, but I've made sure that I've found opportunities as well, and that I think all of these things are out there. Whenever someone looks and thinks, oh, there's that name from doing whatever, that can be you too, because all of us have passed the same tests. Whether you want to, that's down to you. That's a choice, and not everyone has to do it. You can turn up to work every day, go home and forget about everything. I get bored and I'm nosy, so I like sticking myself into other people's lives and seeing what's going on. And I've had opportunities that have come from that have been huge. But it is, all instructors have the ability to maximize their knowledge, their business, and their potential. So anyone that chooses to, anyone who signs up to listen to the podcast is, has my absolute respect, because they're making that effort. It's great. Which, again, that's why you do it, because you want to help people. And it's why I turn up, because I love the fact that there are instructors out there. It keeps me sane that there are instructors out there that are genuinely looking away from the DVSA minimum standard, because that's their job. That's not a criticism.
And if you don't like this podcast, other podcasts are available. Although if you don't like it, I don't know why you'd be listening this far in, but either way. But yeah, not everyone has the same 24 hours. Saw that quote recently, but everyone's got the same 24 hours. That's not true. Everyone's 24 hours are different. It's same for time, but they're different. But you still have opportunities within those 24 hours. And sometimes when people have opportunity in 24 hours, they will spend time going through Facebook groups for instructors and finding questions that they want to answer. But we're not quite ready to dive into that yet, because I know that you are keen to tell us about a new event that you stumbled across that I haven't stumbled across yet. So I know you don't know too much, but it's definitely worth knowing to people. So do you want to just kind of explain what it is, potentially?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it was an email came out from the ADI NJC. That's where I found it, because it is a first car intelligent instructor backed event. It's called ICE Live. Be careful if you Google it, because there are a number of ICE events, including the gaming industry has just had an ICE event. So the website is icelive.org.uk, and it's the Road and Community Safety Virtual Reality Conference. So this is the next level of driving instructing. This is driving instructing of the future, and not just driving instructing, but road safety, looking at the use of virtual reality headsets, the opportunities that they face. During COVID, during lockdown, I spoke to 2 or 3 companies that were developing systems that were VR based for driver education, and it's fascinating stuff. You will be able to sit there in your pajamas, put your VR headset in, and pop in next to your pupil. In your dinner jacket, you'd appear next to them, or whatever you choose. Your avatar would be next to them, and you'd be able to teach them in a virtual environment. Potentially, they would be able to, what I think is really interesting, rehearse events that you don't get to experience on the road, like dealing with horses and cyclists and trains, level crossings. Because I don't know about you, every time I drive to one, there's not a train coming. Really annoying. So that experience can be done in a controlled environment, and we can deal with blue light vehicles and that kind of thing. So I think there's some really interesting developments. It looks like a great event. There is a hot buffet style lunch, which everybody who knows me knows that I base an event on how good food is, and how expensive it is. It looks like the food here is included. However, for ADIs, the ticket price is £175. So that is a fair commitment for something when you're not quite sure what's going to be there. I'd love to hear about anybody who knows, from anyone who knows more about it, and what's going to be going on. But yeah, there's an early bird price of a 10% discount if you book by the end of March. So if you're interested in tech, if you want to see what might be coming next, it's an interesting one to go and have a look at on Wednesday, the 18th of October. Interestingly, on a Wednesday. But yeah, I may well be there. So if I am, come and say hello.
I will try and remember to put the link for that in the show notes. If you listen now, go and check out them. The link should be there to go straight through. Just done some fast maths in my head. Now, I have nothing against that ticket price. If you can afford it, go to it. It sounds pretty cool. I probably can't afford it, but I may still go. The thing that was interesting for me is that if you signed up to Instructor Podcast Premium and the DITC for a year, it would still be cheaper than that.
Well, so if for value for money, I'm getting, at the moment, the exhibitor showcase is First Car, Road Safety GB, HCC Solicitors, which is spelt wrongly on the website. I will drop them an email to let them know.
HCC, mate.
And Leicester Fire and Rescue Service. I wonder whether the British Horse Foundation are going to go along as well, because they've got some VR headset stuff that they use. So it'll be interesting to see if it grows and there's more people coming. One to have a look at. See what you think.
I am going to mention one other form of CPD, one other plug here just for him, because everyone knows I'm a Bob Morton fan. I think everyone's a Bob Morton fan. He used to be a big name in the industry, if you haven't heard of him yet. And he's got a couple of webinars coming up. They are called Being Better with Bob. I won't tell you where he stole that name from. But yeah, I forget the dates, but go and check them out on his Client-Centered Learning website. He's got a couple of masterclass webinars coming up. And if you are a premium member, you actually get a 50% discount, sign up for them. So you basically get 2 for 1, which is quite good. But let's put a pin in all that for now. And we're going to talk just a little bit about grades and grade A and grade B. And this was actually one of your suggestions, Chris. So I think I might let you kick off with almost like why you thought this topic was relevant.
It was a controversial moment in my week, of which I did look back and think, maybe it wasn't worth the effort. There was a question on Facebook that said, would someone taught by a grade A instructor pass faster? But actually it said, could someone? So my answer was yes. They could. Doesn't mean they will. But Possibly slightly tongue-in-cheek at the time when I posted it. Next time I came back to Facebook after a hard day's work, I'd upset a few people, and I do apologise for upsetting because I didn't mean to. It wasn't. I think I was being a little bit facetious about the question, because I always think in a job where we're supposed to be good at asking questions, it's amazing how many rubbish ones end up on Facebook. But I did then defend my position because it is something that I think there is evidence for. Now, that's not to say that all grade A and all grade B are equal. I know some really brilliant grade B instructors, and I know some shocking grade A ones. But I say that someone who's been able to sit in the back of cars and see people teach. If the standards check, and I believe it does, measures a good lesson, a structured lesson, someone who is being taught in a structured way is highly likely to achieve success faster than someone that isn't. And my analogy for this was, imagine making, we're going to go with the Titanic Lego because I really want it. And if anyone fancies gifting it, please do. A couple of my friends have got it, and they've, it's been the best 40 hours they've spent making that. So you're making the Titanic from Lego. One of you has the Lego in a pile, and the other one has the Lego laid out. The one who's got the Lego laid out is going to make it quicker. Doesn't mean it's going to be as fun. Doesn't mean an enjoyment factor, but that structure is going to get you more efficient results on average. And I stand by that. I also stand by could is not would, which was my initial response. So that's where it came from. Now, the reason I thought we should talk about it is actually I think it's a really interesting question of, does A-B matter? Should it matter? And even if it doesn't matter, does it denote a difference? You could argue, should pupils be out looking for the grade B instructors?
There's so many points to touch on there, including now my pressure to ask good questions after you just said that. Let's start off with the most important point, which is I today actually bought the Sanctorium Lego Doctor Strange. It was on offer, and I got that quite cheap. So yeah, that was my treat for myself today. And I'm a pile guy, not a sorting out guy.
That's why you can't sit down.
It's what? Yes, I can't sit down because of all the piles. Yes. I nearly cut you off early for a joke you made. The oh dear. Oh, now I've forgotten all the responses I had lined up in my head. Going right back to the first thing, I know this is me being honest. I do think that if you answer that question, can a grade A instructor, whatever it was, with the answer.
Could a pupil with a grade A instructor pass faster? Yeah,
I do think if you answer that with the answer of yes, you are kind of asking for trouble. It's not one that I would answer like that. Yeah. Either way, I think you're asking for trouble there because A, people won't read the question properly and assume that you're saying grade A instructors are better, and B, other people will look and think, dick. So, but either way, it amused me. You mentioned it to me. I went back and looked, and I had great merriment reading through that. So yeah, I might even put the link for that in the show notes as well. Go check that out. I can't remember where it was now. Either way, yeah, the cards on the table. I've said this before. I'm a grade B. I think that if you'd have asked me to do a standards check this time last year, I would have been a grade C. I would like to think that I've improved a lot since then. No, that's nonsense. I have improved a lot since then. I don't know what grade I will be. I still sometimes take out standard check forms, the mark sheets, and at the end of, I don't do it every lesson, but I try and do it a few times a week. Kind of score myself after a lesson. Now I know I'm doing it, me scoring myself, but I think it's interesting after a lesson to go through on those tick sheets and just see where you would be. So, on a personal sort of note, that's where I am. I have said to myself that if I don't get called up this year, I will probably request one by the end of the year. because I'm curious on that. And kind of one of the, I forget how you phrase it exactly, but does the grade matter? I think that's a really, really interesting question that I don't actually think there's a right answer for. And I possibly even, oh God, I'm turned into that guy now, possibly even the wrong question. Because, it's the question, does it matter to you? Because in reality, it only matters to two people, or to, the DVSA and the individual with the grade.
Should it matter to pupils?
Again, you asked a really good question. Should pupils be looking for grade B instructors? I would hazard a guess that a lot of grade B instructors, not all, I'm not trying to stereotype everyone, but a lot of people that get that grade B probably get some motivation to improve. Whereas potentially, if you get a grade A, and again, I'm not saying everyone, I'm saying potentially, so don't at me. If you get a 51 out of 51, are you going to be as motivated? And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. It's how you, as an individual, interpret that grade. If you don't give a toss, genuinely, whether you're an A or a B, then that's completely fine. That's your opinion. But then also, why throw a tantrum when someone talks about it on Facebook? If you don't care whether you're an A or a B, why are you getting offended when someone says that a grade A can pass someone quickly in a grade B? So I genuinely think it's down to the individual. So my take on that, I would like to get a grade A, and I would like to get 51 out of 51. And the reason, sort of the honest reason behind that, is because that's the criteria that I'm being assessed on by the person that governs my industry. So therefore, I want to be able to do that to the best of my ability. That's their criteria. I've got my secondary criteria, which is how my students feel about me. I know which one I prefer, and it's making sure my students are right and looked after. But that doesn't mean I want to ignore what the governing body of the people that I'm in rate me on. So yeah, I do want to be the best I can be according to them and me.
And I think for me, the interesting thing is I do not believe that the standards check grades the instructor. I believe that the standards check grades the lesson, and we can all deliver good and bad lessons. It's the lesson that was graded. It's not you. It's not to say if you were any good or you aren't any good. It's to say, did your lesson fit a structure? And I happen to agree with the structure as being a really good structure, because all the structure is was there a point to the lesson? I hate the idea of wasting money on a lesson and just driving around for the hell of it, where you don't benefit and get the most out of it. If you have a week's holiday, make the best of the week's holiday. We all, I watched my 12-year-old during the summer holidays going, you do not know how lucky you've got it. Make the most of this. No, he doesn't, because you don't appreciate when you're there. You don't want to look back and go, actually, I've wasted all of that. So there should be a point, and then it should be safe. So actually, if we're working together in the car to keep it safe, it means we can get the most out of it. So again, it's about getting the most out of that. That's what the structure is. And at the end, you want to know, did you do all right? And if you didn't do all right, how can you do better next? I don't get any lesson that shouldn't fit that. Therefore, I value that structure. But it is the lesson that gets the grade. And yeah, I think the thing that's a shame is that rather than go, yes, that is something I want to work towards, everything you've just said, I think the majority of people dismiss it. And that's possibly out of a defensive mechanism of dismissing it. And being that statistically, the majority of people are a grade B, because it's the way it is, that it gets dismissed because of. And yeah, we don't necessarily shout about it. The thing that was important to me was that the lesson that was marked was me being me. That I didn't put on a show. I didn't tailor it. I delivered what I deliver 100%. And therefore, I was very happy with any result that I got, that because it told me where I was at, and could I change things. And yeah, there's a write up somewhere about my last standards check. I'll send you a link, and you can share it with people, because it's very honest, and it says exactly where it went horribly wrong at one moment, and I had to paddle frantically to bring it back. But I just think that there is a value to it, and I think we should embrace that value a little bit more than we possibly do.
I think, again, that's the same as we teach students. We teach them to drive, not to pass a test. So when they go and pass their test, they're not passing it by a fluke. They're passing it because they drive like that consistently. And that's where I agree with you that, when I take that standards check, yes, I want to be at my best. Of course I do. Because there will be days when I'm not at my best. I'm human. But I want it to be a representation. It's like I call the driving test a representation of real life driving. We don't do anything different. I saw a post recently, actually, and you articulate better than I do about the two bits of the driving test that are fabricated, the emergency stop and the parallel park. It's what I tell my students. Everything else is just driving. So it's a representation of real life driving, and the standard check should be a representation of a real life lesson. And that's kind of why they changed it from having an examiner there to having a student there, because that student could have a panic attack, and then you've got to deal with that. And the examiner will then mark that accordingly. When that student's in the middle of a panic attack, do you get them to go to a roundabout, or do you pull up first? Or whatever the situation is. So it's about keeping it safe. So I 100% agree. But as I say, it should be a reflection of your instruction. Now, yes, it should be you at your best. But again, if you go in and do your best, and then say to your students, if you're an A-star driver, let me rephrase that differently. We all know, if we're being honest, that you only need to be almost like a grade B driver to pass your driving test. If you was like GCSE grades, a grade B, maybe even a B- to pass a driving test. So if you're driving an A-star standard and get a bit nervous or make a little mistake, you're going to drop down to a B and you'll still pass. If you're driving at a B standard, you drop down to a C or a D and you're going to fail. It's same on your standards check. If you're delivering, to use their criteria, 51 out of 51 on most lessons and get nervous, you're still going to be a grade A. If you're delivering 30 out of 51 on most lessons and you get nervous, well, guess what's going to happen? And I do think that it is that. And I think I would probably concur with you as well, and that there is a self-defense thing there. And, look at the response to when they brought the standards check in relation to driving test results. And whatever change they make, it will create uproar. And to quote, and maybe I shouldn't say quote because I might get it wrong, but Graham Hooper, I believe, I've tried coaching fame. I'm going to say infamy, but we'll leave it as fame. I think I saw him showing once where he said that as a trainer, he couldn't live with himself if he was a grade B, because he wants to be, that level training people. It goes back to what I said early on about what, in my opinion, the DVSA should be focused on. It's raising the standard of instructors. I include myself in that. I can always be better. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm too reflective at times. But I think that, to go back to that original question, can a grade A instructor pass someone quicker than a grade B? Well, as you said, yes. Yes, they can. But a grade B can pass someone. And I suppose you flip that question around to maybe the question that you would have hoped for. And the one I'll ask back you is a grade A instructor more likely to pass someone faster than a grade B instructor?
And yeah, I would go back to that structured argument, the argument about the structure rather, which is, yes, I think there will be plenty of exceptions. There'll be great grade B and not so good grade A's and all the rest of it, the ones that do it just on the test day. If you are delivering that same standard all the way through the year, then yes, because the structure will be there. And even if it's a bit, you might have upped your game on the day of the test. If that structure is there, you will be getting better results. My question would be, do we want them to pass faster? Should our focus be on how fast, or is the better question, does a grade A instructor produce a better driver, a safer driver at the end of the process? And if we all want to work to something, that's the question that's got merit. I don't know, because I think there's a bit of me that feels that driving is such an emotive, personal thing. If you have an instructor who you engage with well, that you value their opinion and therefore you take it on board and make it part of who you are and your values and decisions, that is what is going to get people to drive better for longer, because they will have taken it on board. And I don't think the DVSA criteria identifies that, whether you've got empathy, whether you get on with your pupils or not, whether you can influence them. It's not that deep. It's just about structure. And I will go back to what I've said for a long, long time, and I will continue to say, please judge me on how my pupils drive after they pass their test, not on how they drive for their test. And I know that gets uproar from a lot of people, because we can't influence them afterwards. No, but we can influence them on the journey there. And some of that they will take with them.
The better you influence them on the journey there, the more they will take away afterwards. I know that from working with other people who I've done like a 12-week course with. The more they've impacted me during that 12 weeks, the longer it's lasted afterwards. And that will go for driving as well. If I can have a bigger and better impact on that student before they leave me, then I will have a bigger and better impact on them afterwards. Is that my responsibility afterwards? That's a whole other discussion that I don't think I've got the brain power to get into today. But I do think that it's my responsibility to try and impact that afterwards. And something that I've spoke about for a long old time is, and you touched on it then, is the rapport with students. And I don't work with students I don't like. How, if I went on Facebook now and I found a group and scrolled down, it wouldn't take me long to find someone complaining about their students. I don't have that problem. I just don't. And that's because I don't take people on that I don't want to work with, ever. Yes, there's the odd one slip through the net, so please, none of the, he's perfect. There's the odd one slip through the net, they don't last long, because they'll either ditch me because I'm not right for them, or I'll ditch them because they're not right for me. But there's a vetting process that goes on that starts right from the very beginning of my social media. Because, and I've used this example before, but if I post something about with a pride flag on, and I have that on my social media post, guess what? Homophobic people aren't coming to me. I've just ruled out a broad sector of people that I don't want to work with. So I filter out a lot of people before they come to me. Then when they come to me, I filter them out through the way they speak to me and messages and the way they liaise with me. And I will take people on whose parents contact me first. I will take people on whose parents do most of the talking. I will take people on who specifically say they don't want the parents to interact at all. So it's not about that side of it. It's just, how will I get on with that person? And I think because of that, and I have no data to back this up at all, it's purely my assumption and guesswork. I think because of that, I have a longer lasting impact with my students. And I would hazard a guess that the students that you get on with better, you have a longer lasting impact with them. And so if you're someone that wants to work with people for as short a time as possible and get them in the door, out the door, that's how you should market yourself. Because you're probably going to have a better influence on those people than I would, because I don't want to work with those people. I'm going to spend half my time arguing with them people. That's why I don't take them on. I want to enjoy my lessons. And that's a new catchphrase for the show, by the way. If you don't enjoy your driving lessons, you're doing them wrong. That's a new sign-off for the show. But yeah, so I think that there's quite a broad thing there. Anything else you want to touch on around that topic, Chris?
Sorry if I offended anybody, but everybody should have access to my phone number, because it's out there. It's not hard to find. I love the conversation. So, and anytime you do, don't just stick it on Facebook and walk away from it. Give us a buzz. I'm up to be corrected, absolutely, and to talk about individuals. But Facebook doesn't work well for that. So always happy to have the chat. But I still believe what I wrote. So that's.
If you would like your Facebook question read out on this podcast, just ask it in a way that Chris can answer with one word, and then we're good to go. Anything else you want to touch on today, Chris?
Bob. No, so just thinking of the one words that I could use outside of that. No, we've upset the DVSA. We've put the world to rights, and everything's a better place. I can go and sleep soundly tonight. So no, thank you.
Well, just a quick reminder where people can find you.
TheDITC.co.uk. Check it out. Let us know what you think, and let us know what we need to add for the things that are important to you, because we've got a long list. It'd be nice to know what the priorities are.
And just a reminder, you can check out www.theinstructorpodcast.com for all my podcast information over there. And remember that if you are not enjoying your driving lessons, you are doing it wrong.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.